I felt like I was watching Lord of the Rings when I saw this episode of Arslan. Like, it kind of felt like that. The first half, or 75% of this episode, felt like I was watching Lord of the Rings, or a battle live-action movie. Like, the way the war was done, like the siege upon the keep, the castle, that right there, I like that. I am a huge fan of stuff like that. And the way that was done in this episode, oh my god. One of the best episodes of Arslan yet. It definitely is hands down one of the best episodes of this series. You can debate about that. And it's debatable to say that this is one of the best episodes of Spring 2015. There's no denying that either. Because this episode has so much meaning for the series, and it has a great center point when it comes to just how mature this series can actually be and what this series is really about. What's shocking when it came to this episode is how realistic, or kind of how it focuses on war. Usually when it comes to an anime that uses war and sieges and stuff like that, it doesn't depict stuff like this, what we got to see in this episode of Arslan, because when you saw the commander, Chaprou, I think that's how you pronounce his name, when he was being tortured, beaten by the freaking Inquisitor and, you know, the Archpriest or whatever, beating the shit out of him, he's like, kill me, my man, shoot me, kill me before I'm tortured. That scene, very impactful scene to the series, because to see how he was begging his men to kill him because he didn't want to sit there and be tortured by these assholes that were using the name of God to justify their brutal killing, it just goes to show you how fucked up it is. And it goes to play into some realistic type things or themes of the world, because we do know in the past, when it came to war in, you know, ancient days, like maybe 200, 300 years ago, or even earlier than that, wars usually start because of religion. Majority of the time, let's face it, that is the truth. And this right here is no different when it comes to be shown in this anime series. These people that are raiding the entire country, Arslan's country, are reigning because of their name and God, and they're using their God to justify their murder, killing, and this senseless violence they're using, especially torturing Chaprou in this episode, like wanting to cut off his toe individually, then go to his hands, and stuff like that. That was really fucked up and dark, but it shows you once again how this series is able to use these mature themes that was actually used in real life history. And as I've always said many times when it comes to stuff like this in anime, when it comes to depicting real-life historical events and really going into these controversial topics of humanity, I truly appreciate stuff like this. It makes me appreciate the anime and really see that the writer is not scared to show these controversial themes when it comes to writing. And that's what this does. Like, this episode, it could kind of be controversial depending on your standpoint of religion, or, you know, how wars are done in general. Like, to see how the commander was begging his men to kill him, and then he was killed, and he saw you smiling, and then the guys were using, like, religion, their name, to cut off his toes and stuff. That just goes to a very controversial topic. And some are probably going to have some issues when it comes to the series, especially when it's something like that. So, yeah, it really makes me love this episode. And it's not just that either. The way the war was done with the siege, like when you saw how the, like, siege towers were coming, or the ladders, and the oil going down the ladders and stuff like that, or the battering ram beating up against the door, it was a really cool way to demonstrate how desperate this war is and how the atmosphere of this war is. And that's something you don't normally get when it comes to a war anime. Like, when you're watching a war anime, you usually just see how it's toned down. Sometimes it's toned down, or it's just, you know, doesn't have a lot of strategy put behind it all the time. It usually does, but often it doesn't. And see how it was done in this episode, especially with how, like, they used the slaves to build them up and to turn against the entire empire, the castle and fortress, to open up the doors. That also was really cool, getting to see how the strategy was done with that, like how to win a war with nothing but words instead of using nothing but senseless violence. And that's how they kind of won in this episode. They forced the slaves, like, oh, we're going to be free men, let's open up this door, and then they opened up the gate, and yeah, and we know what happens afterwards. So when it came to this episode of Arslan, one of the best episodes yet, debatable to be one of the best episodes of the series yet. And the animation, the only thing I have to say when it came to the animations of the episode is the CGI. The CGI is very, very cringy because when you get used to the standard art animation of this series, especially with how it normally is, and when you see it switch to a CGI type combat system, especially when they're going up the ladders and in the siege towers and stuff, it's very jarring. I can't deny that. Like, when I was sitting here watching it with the, you know, the regular animation, all of a sudden it goes to the CGI type shit, I was like, ew. It's very nasty. I mean, I'm used to CGI from Sidonia, and I've watched a lot of CGI anime, so I can usually look past it, but when you get used to a certain art style for a certain anime, like, let's say this. Let's say Shigatsu, okay, from last anime season. It's nothing but the standard animation we know, and all of a sudden it goes into CGI when you see, you know, Cardi just sitting there playing. You know, wouldn't that be kind of weird? Like, it feel very off. And so that's how I felt when the CGI was used in this series. Like, it just came out of nowhere. Like, it just pops up out of nowhere, and you're just not expecting it. It just jars you out of the, like, oh, yeah, I'm watching a fucking anime. And so, yeah, that's a little bit off-putting when it came to this episode. But no episode is perfect, so you can't really expect everything to be 100% perfect. So I guess let's look past that. Music overall, I'm loving the atmosphere, the way the music is very atmospheric. It really adds a different tone to the series, especially with how it was used in this episode. When you saw the dude playing his music, the musician, the new dude that was introduced, his name was like Grieve or Gruv or whatever his name was. He was introduced and he was playing this war song for all the people that were currently fighting at that moment. That song was very beautiful, and it really suited the entire atmosphere of what was going on, a very tragic atmosphere, and how war is not pleasant. And that's what you can get. So tell me your thoughts. How do you feel about this week's episode of Arslan? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? How do you feel about everything that happened? I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.